Do you train combat sports? Have you ever been injured? Dr. Megan Jimenez is an Army orthopedic sports surgeon and Jiu Jitsu black belt. This is Dr. Jiu Jitsu, your go-to podcast for combat sports, military performance, injury prevention, and treatment. New episodes drop the first Friday of each month.
All right, I'm Megan Jimenez. I'm an orthopedic surgeon, and I'm here with my lovely friend.
I'm Avery Claire Wrigglesworth, and I'm an owner and operator of Lily Hill Farm.
So tell me about how you got started here and what got you into this lovely farming business.
So about little over 3 years ago now, my husband and I moved back home we were actually overseas working in international finance. We moved back to help save the farm out of foreclosure. So we ran it as a traditional cow-calf operation, which is essentially auctioning our young cattle off once a year to go into the traditional feedlot system. We ran it like that for a little over 2 years and then decided to transition into a direct-to-consumer business model. So we essentially, so all cattle are born, raised, and finished on our farm now, and we ship our beef all over the U.S., and we also sell locally.
And what made you want to do this?
So I think my main drive to do it was, my dad was like, we're going to lose the farm. And I really wanted to step up. I wanted to help him. And I don't think agriculture really was my calling per se then, but I always had a very special place in my heart for the farm. So I just didn't feel like it was quite ready for us to, see the farm get sold off and developed. So I kind of then, I think, really grew to appreciate agriculture and the difficulties, but also how rewarding and beautiful it can be as well. And really just trying to make a change the best way I know how.
Now, I know most people get their meat from grocery stores, right? I used to get my meat from grocery stores all the time until I found local farmers like you. There's so many local farmers in the area, and I'm from New Jersey, so I didn't know anything about this, right? We lived more in the city, by the beach, always going to the grocery store, just got whatever meat. So what makes meat here different? I know I can taste the difference, and I won't go back to grocery stores much anymore unless I'm in a pinch. But for the most part, my meat comes from here.
So I think the biggest difference you're going to see is the cattle being raised in a pastoral environment, and I think that has a huge impact on not only the quality of the meat, but it really impacts the quality of their life as well. And I think that can portray into meat quality more than people really originally would think. So I think that it's really just has to do with how they're raised, and also being born, raised, and finished all on the same farm. You're really reducing stress that cattle has to endure throughout its lifetime. When they're shipped off, if we were selling them through the traditional system, if they were being sold off the farm, they would be shipped off out west, and they would have to endure a very long haul. That's very traumatic on them. And a lot of times when they get loaded off in the feedlots, they then have to be given antibiotics to help prevent any type of shipping fever. And there's a lot of other things that, just that hauling aspect really escalates the stress that an animal has to go through throughout their life. Even if it is short term, it does impact other things within the quality of their life.
And what are they eating here versus what we get at the grocery store? And what's their life like here?
So they're raised on pasture 24/7, and we also cut and bale all of our own hay. And we do supplement some groups with grain off the farm, and that really depends on the group and their nutritional needs. So we have some cattle that, might need a little extra help. And the forage on our farm in Georgia, especially the natural forage, can be lacking in certain essential nutrients for some of our cattle that need a little bit more of a higher caloric intake and more energy out of their food. So we do supplement some groups with grain, but on a whole, the majority of our cattle are pasture-raised 365.
They're family.
Yeah.
Cattle are a family. So what do you think is stopping the population from going kind of back? Like you keep saying traditional, but to me, this is traditional, right? This is where we came from.
Yeah.
I always talk about the ancestors and eating off the land and the cows and all the animals that we have eaten years and years ago, hundreds of years, were from the land. So what, the population boom, trying to feed more people, how do we bring it back here?
I think it's really a cultural thing. It's what we're used to. And I think also social media can be a really beautiful tool in showing people that, there's other ways to source your food. You have options. I think that, we do, in the U.S., we do have a very efficient, our beef production system is very efficient, but just because it's efficient doesn't mean it's necessarily better for our health. So I think we really need to step back and try to support local farms and direct-to-consumer farms as much as we can, because they're really driving more of the regenerative and sustainable agriculture movements. And, they're not, being kind of forced by larger corporations to run their farms certain ways, or by, having to buy large commodities in. So I think that the smaller farms are really at the forefront of the sustainable and regenerative agricultural movement.
You talking about regenerative, and regenerative farming is something brought up a lot. What does that mean?
So we like to look at it, it's a mindset. You really want to look at your land, and you want to put more in than take out. So you want to look at improving it, you want to look at your soil health, you want to look at planning for the future, and you want to utilize your livestock to do that as much as possible. So, in more of a commercialized farm system, you might bring in commercial fertilizer, which is a synthetic version, put it on your pastures. And, if you're more of a regenerative farmer, you're going to look at, well, how can I use my cattle who are already fertilizing the pasture? How can I graze them methodically to improve my soil health? How can I feed them in the winter to really build up that soil again? And so I think it's really a mindset and striving to do better, and
using nature to feed us.
Leave it better than you found it, essentially. And
awesome.
Yeah.
How many cows do you have back here?
So right now we have about 500 head, but we only have 250 brood cows, and we're calving those out right now, and the rest are going to be for our meat program. So we are going to be selling a lot of meat next year.
Awesome.
So, yeah.
And you have a bunch of dogs on the property?
Yes, we do have a couple. Some are useless, some are useful.
Those are emotional dogs.
Emotional support.
Yeah.
No, but yeah, so.
And the other dogs are out and about. What are they doing?
They're with the herd, and generally they are just surveying to see. We have, there's, sometimes neighbors let their dogs run free, and right now we're calving, so they're going to make sure those calves aren't getting messed with by any dogs or coyotes or anything like that.
So nice. So there's going to be people that have no idea what this kind of farming even is, right? Because you talked about going to grocery stores and easier. What recommendations can you give to them? I know sometimes people say, oh, it's expensive to go to farmers. And how can we kind of change that mentality and that mindset surrounding it?
I think even just buying direct from farmers once or twice a year to begin with, just really opening that up and figuring out that it is worth spending that extra dollars on. And, it might mean that you have to be a little more conscientious about what food you're wasting in your household. We waste 40% of food in the traditional, American household. So it's significant. So maybe just be a little bit more mindful about how you're eating. And I think there are ways that you can incorporate it and still have it be sustainable financially for you. So, yeah.
Cool. Anything else you want to add or about farming, about your life, about how it's been going? I know you've been in here almost 4 years, we were saying.
Mm-hmm.
What have you learned?
Well, I've learned that I've been humbled many times. So I think everyone has become very far removed from agriculture, that they don't understand what it takes to actually bring a steak to your table. That's nearly 2 years for us. And we'll see cattle die throughout that time. You're always going to have a small percentage that aren't going to make it, due to mom having a hard labor. You're going to have to deal with freak accidents. You're going to have to deal with drought. You're going to have to deal with, wet, rainy weather in the wintertime. So I think, a lot of us farmers, we really aren't making a huge profit off of farming, and it really is a labor of love. So, yeah.
Awesome.
What originally drove you to seek local, more regenerative type farms?
Well, it wasn't until I got to Georgia, and I've been here about 3 years now. I went to the Piggly Wiggly and I got some meat, and the color was very different. And I saw it, and it didn't taste great. It was very chewy. The meats that I got, couldn't really eat it and enjoy it. I just felt like I was trying to shovel in nutrients, and it probably wasn't very nutritious. And so I started getting really into nutrition. And as an orthopedic surgeon, one of the big things I talk about with my patients is nutrition, because a lot of people eat a lot of really processed, terrible junk, and then their joints are inflamed. And they come to me and saying, my knee hurts. They're obese, eating processed foods, eating really poor meat quality. And I started looking at all this, and I was like, there's got to be a better way to get this food. And we have to stop eating so much packaged food that has a shelf life of 20 years, right? That's terrible. And one of my patients actually was like, you should try a farm in Columbus. And so I was like, all right, well, I go and train Jiu Jitsu there, so let's go. And I met them, and they took me on a tour of the farm, and they're like out there hugging the pigs, and it was just it was an amazing experience to see how they took care of the animals. And I was like, I don't think that these other grocery stores are doing this with their animals. Like, it's family, right? And they had a great life with minimum stress. Like, I saw how they move them, and it's just so natural. It's like a flowing river. It's just very natural how they move the animals. And I tried that meat, and just looking at the color difference. And I just tried a little bit, and then I started getting into organs and finding out all the nutrients of liver, heart. I tried kidney. That one was a little bit extra for me. It was just taking out the filtration system of the kidney. So I stick to heart and liver pretty much, but the nutrients in that are just insane when I started looking at the benefits of it. So that was it. I was hooked. And then anytime I eat at a grocery store or get from certain grocery stores, I'm like, I'm just going to stick to like eggs, and I have my friend who has chickens, treats them like family. I go play with the chickens, and they're like pets, but they eat well, and that's where I get my chickens from. I don't want to get chickens, or I might get my eggs from. I don't want to get eggs from the store anymore. And so it was just I feel more energized. I feel so much better when I eat it. I don't feel like I want to go take a nap after I eat. I feel like I've eaten this great source of nutrition from these beautiful places, from all the love that you give the animals, and that energy comes through. And then I can go kick some ass in jiu-jitsu.
Yeah. Do you think that sourcing your food locally and actually visiting these farms has helped you kind of reconnect to your food and find it almost more enjoyable to eat it and cook it more, be more conscientious about, how you're eating and what you're wasting?
100%, because I come here and I get all my meat, and I have friends over and I have family over, and it's so exciting for me to share it with them, because I'm like, this is from like Lily Hill Farm. My friend like took care of these cows, like helped birth them, and they had a great life, and they had free roaming of the land and did whatever they wanted for their lives. And then they're giving us nutrition. And because they had such a good life, it's just like a beautiful circle of life that I'm getting all that energy and nutrition versus cows that are probably in like a little pen, fed synthetics, pumped with antibiotics. I really don't know what is happening behind closed doors. I can only imagine what those animals go through. And that energy isn't what I want in my body. And so I love just sharing it with my family, sharing it with my friends. And I get so excited to share the meat with them, because I'm like, this is from the farm. And I think some of my friends are just like, you're insane. But
Not quite there yet. But
taste it, and they're like, that is the best like fillet I've ever had. That's the best flank steak I've ever had. And it's just because of the whole process.
Yeah. I do think that raising them out on pasture really makes a world of difference. And there's little things that I really pick up on, like they scratch up against trees. It's a way that they can take care of their skin. If they're in a feedlot, they don't necessarily have that, or they'll put those broom things up that are just of plastic to mimic that. And they go and they seek certain areas of the dirt. We do give them mineral, but they lick up certain areas of the dirt that have minerals in them that they can, kind of help balance their systems. And I think it's it's just really important for them to be able to
The animals.
practice their normal behaviors, and then also us, honor them and give them as stress-free life as possible. So,
That's how nature intended it.
yeah. So
All right. So people that are looking to get into supporting local farmers and getting this great quality meat, how can they find you? How can they reach you?
well, we do sell all of our products online at lilyhocattle.com. You can also follow us on Instagram to keep up to date with the farm, and I share a lot about even the family dynamics and also how we raise our livestock. And my Instagram handle is lilyhocattle. And so those are the best ways to get in contact with us.
Cool. And she loves all the questions that you guys have. If you have any questions about how the cattle are being raised, or even a question that she might not know off the top of her head, we go and look for it.
Yeah.
So this is my friend Avery. Go check her out and start feeding your body, fueling yourself for success. Get that love, get the cattle, go out and meet your local farmers, because they're all over the country and you can really find them if you do your research.